2,700 years ago. 7 words. One prophecy that has never been fulfilled. Damascus will cease to be a city and will become a heap of ruins. For 2,007 centuries, critics had one unshakable argument. Damascus is still standing. The oldest continuously inhabited capital on Earth. 4,000 years of unbroken history. Conquered by Assyrians, Babylonians, Greeks, Romans, Mongols, Ottomans. And yet, it never stopped being a city. Until December 8th, 2024. In the past 13 months, something has changed. Something unprecedented. The Assad regime collapsed in 48 hours. Israel now occupies territory 15 kilometers inside Syria. 6 foreign militaries operate in Syrian airspace. And intelligence reports suggest a mechanism exists that could fulfill Isaiah 17:14. Destruction before morning comes. Is the oldest unfulfilled prophecy about Damascus finally coming true? In our generation? And if so, what does before morning actually mean in 2026? To answer that, we need to go back 2,700 years and forward to last month. Let's start with the prophecy itself. Isaiah chapter 17, verse 1. Written approximately 735 years before Christ. Here's what it says. An oracle concerning Damascus. Behold, Damascus will cease to be a city and will become a heap of ruins. The Hebrew phrase here is me mapala. Me means a heap, a pile of rubble. Mapala comes from the verb nafal, meaning to fall, to collapse completely. This isn't describing conquest. This isn't describing occupation. This is describing obliteration. The complete and permanent end of Damascus as a functioning city. But there's another verse we need to examine. Isaiah 17:14. At evening time, behold, terror. Before morning, they are gone. Evening to morning. That's roughly a 12-hour window. In the ancient world, no army could level a stone city that fast. Siege warfare took months, sometimes years. The walls of Jericho were an exception, and that required divine intervention. So what did Isaiah see? Was this poetic exaggeration? Or was he describing something that didn't exist in his time, but would exist in ours? Now, most mainstream scholars will tell you this prophecy was already fulfilled. In 732 BC, the Assyrian emperor Tiglath-Pileser III conquered Damascus. He killed King Rezin, deported the population, absorbed Syria into his empire. Case closed? Here's the problem. Damascus was never destroyed. It was conquered, yes, but immediately rebuilt as an Assyrian provincial capital, then a Babylonian city, then Persian, Greek, Roman, Arab, Ottoman. 4,000 years of continuous habitation. If Isaiah meant 732 BC, he got it wrong. Damascus didn't become a heap of ruins. It became a regional hub for every empire that followed. So either Isaiah was wrong, or the prophecy hasn't happened yet. This is where futurist interpreters make their case. They point to 3 things. First, Damascus has never stopped being a city. The prophecy requires permanent cessation. Second, the scale of destruction. Heap of ruins implies physical annihilation, not political conquest. Third, Isaiah 17:7 says, "In that day, people will look to their Maker." This spiritual revival didn't happen in 732 BC. Israel continued worshiping idols until their exile decades later. For 2,700 years, the conditions for fulfillment never aligned. until now. To understand why 2026 is different from every other year in Damascus's 4,000-year history, we need to examine three converging threads: the collapse of Assad, the expansion of Israel, and the desperation of Iran. Let's start with December 8, 2024, the day Damascus lost its government. December 7, 2024. The city of Homs, Syria's third largest, falls to opposition forces in less than 24 hours. The Assad regime, which had survived 13 years of brutal civil war, crumbles like wet paper. How did this happen? Hezbollah, Assad's lifeline from Lebanon, had been decimated by Israeli strikes throughout 2024. Russia, Assad's air force, was distracted by the grinding war in Ukraine, unable to spare resources for another front. The regime's military, hollowed out by years of attrition and corruption, simply collapsed when pushed. December 8, 2024. Bashar al-Assad boards a plane. Destination: Moscow. After 24 years in power, after his father Hafez's 29 years before him, the Assad dynasty ends. Not with a heroic last stand, not with a negotiated transition, with a flight into exile. 53 years of Assad rule, gone in 48 hours. Now, here's where the prophecy becomes relevant. Isaiah 17:3 says something remarkable. The fortress will disappear from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus. The kingdom from Damascus. That's not about buildings. That's about sovereignty, political authority, the ability to govern. For the first time in modern history, Damascus has no functioning central government. Yes, Ahmed al-Sharaa, formerly known as al-Julani, leads a transitional administration, but his authority is fragile at best. ISIS cells have reactivated across eastern Syria, so dangerous that the United Kingdom and France launched joint airstrikes in January 2026 to destroy underground ISIS facilities in Homs province. Multiple factions control different territories. Warlords carve out fiefdoms. The kingdom Isaiah spoke of? Dissolved. Picture Damascus on that December night. The presidential palace, empty. The Ba'ath Party headquarters, abandoned. The intelligence buildings that terrorized millions for decades, silent. For the first time in living memory, no one truly governs Syria's ancient capital. Damascus still has buildings, but does it still have cityhood, governance, order? The prophecy may already be partially fulfilled in the political sense, but Assad's collapse wasn't the only seismic shift. Within weeks, another player moved to fill the vacuum. A player with 2,700 years of history with Damascus. A player whose own scriptures warned this day would come. Israel. To understand what Israel is doing in Syria, you have to understand October 7th, 2023. 1,200 Israelis killed in a single day. The worst day for Jewish people since the Holocaust. Entire communities massacred, families torn apart. The illusion of security shattered. Israel's defense doctrine had relied on deterrence, on buffer zones, on trusting that neighboring territories would be managed by forces, even hostile ones, who could be contained. That doctrine died on October 7th. The new Israeli approach can be summarized in 3 words. Never again means never again. No more buffer agreements that can be violated. No more trusting neighbors to maintain peace. No more waiting for threats to fully materialize before responding. When Assad fell in December 2024, Israel didn't wait to see what government would emerge. They didn't trust that the chaos would resolve itself peacefully. They moved. Here's what Israeli forces have done since Assad's collapse. First, they didn't just reoccupy the 1974 UNDOF buffer zone in the Golan Heights. They pushed 15 kilometers beyond it into Syrian territory. Not a temporary incursion. Military analysts report the construction of semi-permanent fortified positions, bases designed for long-term presence. Second, beyond the territory they physically control, Israel has declared an area of influence extending to the suburbs of Damascus itself. Within this zone, the IDF claims authority to strike any target deemed a threat. No warning required, no permission asked. Third, Israel has seized 6 strategic water sources in southern Syria, including the critical Al-Mantara Dam. Control of water isn't a short-term tactical move. It's a statement of intent to remain. Israeli artillery can now reach Damascus. Israeli jets patrol Syrian skies daily. The ancient capital, for the first time in its long history, sits within direct strike range of Israeli weapons. Remember Isaiah 17:3? The fortress will disappear from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus. The remnant of Syria will be like the glory of the children of Israel. Ephraim was the northern kingdom of Israel. The prophecy links Damascus's fate directly to Israel's military posture. The two are intertwined. What happens to one affects the other. Today, they are literally entangled on the same battlefield. Israeli forces and Syrian territory, prophetically connected, militarily enmeshed. Israel's expansion created a powder keg. Assad's collapse provided the vacuum. But every powder keg needs a spark. That spark has a name, a flag, and a very desperate agenda: Iran. June 2025. For 12 days, the unthinkable happened. Israel and Iran went to war, directly, not through proxies, not through deniable operations. Direct military conflict between two regional powers. The United States bombed Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel struck military installations and what officials called nuclear-related targets across Iran. The axis of resistance, Iran's network of proxy forces including Hezbollah, Syrian militias, and Iraqi fighters, took devastating losses. The 12-day war ended, but it didn't resolve anything. In January 2026, banners appeared across Tehran. 3 words in bold letters: "It will happen again." Not a threat from radical fringe groups, official messaging. Iran's leadership making clear that the 12-day war was round 1. Round 2 is coming. Here's why Damascus matters to Iran more than ever. With Hezbollah degraded and Lebanon increasingly unstable, Syria represents Iran's last gateway to Israel's northern border. For years, Damascus served as the critical transit point for Iranian weapons, rockets, missiles, drones, flowing to Hezbollah and other proxy forces. Israel has made its position unambiguous: complete demilitarization of Syria. Any attempt to rebuild the weapons pipeline through Damascus crosses a red line that will be met with overwhelming force. Iran needs Damascus to maintain what they call the Arc of Fire, the crescent of Allied territory stretching from Tehran through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon to Israel's borders. Israel needs Damascus neutralized to ensure national survival. Both cannot have what they want. The strategic math is zero-sum. One side's victory requires the other's defeat. A cornered Iran is a dangerous Iran. Desperate actors make catastrophic miscalculations. Intelligence analysts have wargamed a scenario that keeps military planners awake at night. An Iranian proxy cell, IRGC remnants, radicalized militias, or even rogue actors, prepares to launch weapons of mass destruction from Damascus toward Tel Aviv. Chemical weapons, radiological material, something capable of causing mass casualties. Israel detects the threat through its extensive intelligence network. Following decades of established doctrine, Israel doesn't wait for the launch. They strike first, massively, decisively. The result? That brings us to the element of Isaiah's prophecy we haven't fully addressed, the detail that makes modern analysts genuinely uncomfortable: the overnight clause. Let's return to the verse we examined at the beginning, Isaiah 17:14. At evening time, behold, terror. Before morning, they are gone. In the ancient world, this was physically impossible. Armies didn't destroy cities overnight. They surrounded them, starved them, battered their walls for weeks or months until defenders weakened. Then came the breach. Then the street-by-street fighting. Then the looting. Then the burning. The process took time. Considerable time. Even the most brutal conquerors needed weeks to reduce a major city to rubble. No human force in 735 BC could level Damascus between sunset and sunrise. So what did Isaiah see? Today, the capability exists. A tactical nuclear weapon, the kind Israel is widely believed to possess, though officially neither confirms nor denies, could devastate central Damascus in seconds. The initial thermal pulse, the blast wave expanding outward at supersonic speed, the subsequent firestorm, the radioactive fallout making the area uninhabitable, all of it complete before the first light of dawn. Alternatively, thermobaric weapons, fuel-air explosives that create massive overpressure waves, could collapse structures across entire city blocks. A coordinated thermobaric strike package could cause catastrophic damage in minutes rather than hours. Even without weapons of mass destruction, Israel's Air Force, operating essentially unopposed in Syrian airspace, could deliver hundreds of precision munitions in a single concentrated attack. Modern air power can accomplish in one night what ancient armies required months to achieve. For the first time in human history, before morning they are gone is not poetic language. It's a military capability. And here's what makes this terrifyingly real. In June 2025, the nuclear threshold was approached. The United States bombed Iranian nuclear sites. Israel struck targets across Iran with devastating precision. The precedent for massive, rapid strikes against perceived existential threats has already been set. If Damascus becomes the staging ground for a weapons of mass destruction attack against Israel, or even if credible intelligence suggests such an attack is imminent, the before morning scenario isn't wild speculation. It's doctrine. There's one more element we need to address. Isaiah 17:12. Woe to the multitude of many peoples who make a noise like the roar of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. The roar of many nations. What does that mean? Look at who is operating in Syrian territory right now. The United States, supporting Kurdish allies in the northeast, conducting ongoing strikes against ISIS remnants. The United Kingdom and France, bombing ISIS positions as recently as January 2026. Joint operations against underground terrorist facilities. Russia, maintaining forces to protect remaining naval and air assets on the Syrian coast, refusing to completely abandon their Mediterranean foothold. Turkey, controlling significant portions of northern Syria, supporting their own proxy forces, pursuing their own strategic agenda against Kurdish groups. Iran, operating through proxy networks throughout Syrian territory, desperate to maintain influence, preparing for the next round of conflict. Israel, expanding territorial control in the south, conducting daily air operations, positioned within striking distance of the capital. 6 nations, 6 different agendas, all operating in the same small country, all capable of triggering wider conflict through accident or miscalculation. Damascus is literally surrounded by the roar of many nations. The prophecy reads like a description of satellite imagery. But many scholars believe Isaiah 17 isn't an isolated prophecy. It's the first domino in a larger sequence. The destruction of Damascus could trigger what Psalm 83 describes, neighboring nations attacking Israel in retaliation or opportunism. That conflict, in turn, could set the stage for Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, the war of Gog and Magog, a massive coalition descending on Israel from the north. Ezekiel 38 names the players in that coalition: Magog, traditionally identified with Russia; Persia, Iran by its ancient name; Put and Cush, North African nations; Gomer and Beth Togarmah, regions associated with modern Turkey. Russia, Iran, Turkey. All three already have military forces in Syria. All three are positioned. The chess pieces aren't just on the board. They're already in motion. 2,700 years ago, Isaiah wrote words that seemed impossible. Today, every condition for their fulfillment is aligning. The convergence is undeniable. Let's step back. Let's see what we've actually uncovered. Isaiah 17:1 said, "Damascus will cease to be a city." In December 2024, for the first time in modern history, Damascus lost its central government. The Assad kingdom dissolved. Isaiah 17:3 said the fortress would disappear from Ephraim, linking Syria's fate to Israel's. Today, Israeli forces control territory extending to Damascus's doorstep. The two nations are militarily entangled, exactly as the prophecy described. Isaiah 17:14 said destruction would come before morning. Nuclear capabilities, thermobaric weapons, precision-guided munitions. The technology now exists to fulfill that verse literally. The 12-day war of 2025 proved the willingness to use overwhelming force. Isaiah 17:12 described the roar of many nations. 6 foreign militaries currently operate in Syrian airspace. Damascus is surrounded. Every element, every detail, aligning. For 2,700 years, Damascus survived every empire. Assyrians conquered it, and it rose again. Babylonians took it, and it rebuilt. Greeks marched through its gates. Romans made it a provincial capital. Arab armies claimed it for Islam. Crusaders besieged it. Mongols devastated the region. Ottomans ruled for 4 centuries. And through all of it, every conquest, every war, every change of masters, Damascus never stopped being a city. It earned the title, the oldest continuously inhabited capital on Earth. But it never faced what it faces now, a perfect storm. Collapsed governance with no clear path to stability. Israeli military encirclement growing tighter by the month. Iranian desperation to maintain regional relevance at any cost. Nuclear-capable adversaries who have already demonstrated willingness to strike. A fragmented battlefield where 6 nations operate with competing agendas, where one miscalculation, one proxy cell acting without authorization, one intelligence failure, one itchy trigger finger could initiate the overnight scenario Isaiah described. The prophecy hasn't been fulfilled. Not yet. Damascus still stands. For now. But for the first time in 27 centuries, every prerequisite for fulfillment is in place. This isn't speculation. This is pattern recognition. The same God who inspired Isaiah's words is the God who governs history. And history, right now, is bending toward Damascus. But here's what we cannot miss. Isaiah 17:7 offers something unexpected within the devastation. In that day, people will look to their Maker and turn their eyes to the Holy One of Israel. Even in judgment, God's purpose is redemption. The destruction of Damascus, if and when it comes, isn't the end of the story. It's a turning point, a moment when humanity looks up instead of around, when Israel, specifically, turns back to their God. Damascus may be the first domino, but the dominoes lead somewhere. Through Psalm 83, through Ezekiel 38, through tribulation and testing and trial, to the return of the King. We may be watching the opening act of the final drama. The question isn't whether God's word is true. The question is, are we paying attention? So what does this mean for you? Not fear, watchfulness. Jesus told his disciples, "When you see these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near." Isaiah 17 isn't meant to terrify you. It's meant to confirm what believers have always known. God's word is true. His timeline is unfolding. History moves according to His purposes, not ours. And He invites you, commands you, to be ready. Damascus may be the first domino, but what comes next? You don't want to miss it. If this video opened your eyes to something new, share it with someone who needs to see this. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming. And drop a comment below. Do you believe we're witnessing Isaiah 17 unfold in real time? I want to hear from you. Damascus has stood for 4,000 years. Isaiah said it won't stand forever. Are we the generation that sees it fall?